Mike Wilner, Toronto Blue Jays broadcaster in Toronto. Mike, welcome. Great to see you, not under these circumstances. That didn't take long. That's what I would begin with. How bad is this?
There's no question that it's bad, absolutely. But is it uncontainable? I mean, that's what we'll see in the next few days. I think it was pretty irresponsible of the Marlins to play on Sunday, but I don't think it should have been up to the Marlins. For some reason, once you had those 4 positive tests, they held a team meeting and they left it up to apparently Don Mattingly, the manager, said he went to the shortstop, Miguel Rojas, to ask if they should play. And Miguel Rojas, as far as I know, is not really a public health official. And I think that Major League Baseball should have stepped in and said, hold on a second, before you get on a field against a team you've got 4 positive cases and still being tested every other day, so waiting for more results. Let's hold back. The Phillies knew about it. It's not like the Marlins didn't inform the Phillies, but players are always going to want to play, and they're always going to think that that they're taking the necessary precautions. Probably not going to happen to them. What's going to be interesting is the wrong word, but what we need to find out is, did any of the Phillies get infected? And we may not find that out for a couple of days. I know that the Phillies all got tested yesterday. They're waiting for the results of those tests, but very often the positives won't show up, I'm understanding, for a day or two. So it is a scary thing. And, you hope that Major League Baseball is being as responsible as possible. I would hope that we'll see more players wearing masks on the field, first baseman at the very least, catchers, hitters when they come up. Otherwise, it's a relatively distanced sport for the most part. But, the precautions that players are supposed to be taking, we're seeing that they're not really paying attention.
There's still some high-fiving going on. There's still spitting going on. They're still pretty close in the dugout. Yes, you're right. And the Phillies part, to me, strikes me as the worst part of it, that they carried on. So, yes, we will wait. We haven't had any news this morning from the organization. We do have, I was mentioning the commissioner, Rob Manfred. As bad as it is, he is sort of downplaying things. This is how he answered questions on Major League Baseball television. But if it's not a nightmare situation, it's got to be as close as it can, being as, the season has just begun. Can they finish 60 games, Mike?
I think they want to, and I think they're pretty determined to do it. I mean, we just saw from Rob Manfred, and I don't think this is the nightmare situation, but by no means is this a good situation. But I think a nightmare is you're talking about, 4 to 6 teams losing half their rosters or having a dozen people get sick, like happened with Miami. And I don't want to downplay it. I think it's very serious. And I think we need to remember that, you can say a positive test, 12 positive tests, whatever. It's all, each one of them is a human being who is sick. And while many of them are asymptomatic, a lot of them are not. Freddie Freeman from the Braves thought he was going to die a week ago. Eduardo Rodriguez, who's a Red Sox pitcher, has developed a heart issue after being infected. So, there's a human face on every one of these things. And obviously, any positives are too many. But if you're not going to bubble, and if you're not going to, keep an eye on your players when they're not at the ballpark, and then you're not going to really distance them when you are at the ballpark, you're going to run into these things, unfortunately. But I think baseball appears to be bound and determined to persevere.
So you mentioned if you're not going to bubble, that was something Major League Baseball did consider, as the NHL is doing, as the NBA is doing, but rejected that. What changes, if any, are likely if they're not right now going to cancel the season? Is there some way to curtail travel or change the model in some way, Mike?
They say that they can, if it comes to that they can shut down for a couple of weeks. They can bubble up. But remember, the original bubble idea was rejected by the players, and it was to have a bubble in Florida and another one in Arizona. And these were, in May, when both those states were doing quite well, and now both those states are doing terribly. So what they're doing, as my colleague Shai Davidi pointed out yesterday in his column, is that they're still using their May ideas in a late July situation where basically everything has changed. The places that weren't hotspots are, the places that were hotspots aren't. The players seem to really not want to bubble. They want to be home. But it may come down to the fact that you just can't. And we'll see as the Marlins situation, if it spreads across baseball. Did they infect the Phillies? Did they infect the Phillies clubhouse where the Yankees are supposed to be, where the Blue Jays are going to be on Friday? Are other teams going to get sick? Is this thing going to have to pull back and stop for a couple of weeks before they can restart it? We'll find all that out, I would assume, in the next couple of days.
We may be having more conversations. We heard from the Nationals manager saying he's scared. Just want to pull up the tweet from David Price, who opted not to play this season. And he talked about how Major League Baseball, in his view, is not putting players' health first. That's a criticism some have made. Some have also been critical, Mike, as you would know, of the federal government in this country for not allowing baseball in Toronto, not allowing the Jays to play their home games here because of concerns about travel. Does this justify that decision, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think it does. You could be as careful as you can as an individual team, and the Blue Jays were bubbled. The Blue Jays were the only team that was in a bubble. They never left the footprint of Rogers Center the whole 2.5 weeks that they were here. And that was extremely responsible and smart of them. And we didn't get any players getting infected, I don't believe, while they were in Toronto. Anyone who had it before they went to intake or while they were down in Florida. So while the Blue Jays did everything that they were supposed to do, and most of them, I believe, are continuing to do that. Santiago Espinal said yesterday he's not leaving his hotel room when they're on the road except to go to the ballpark and back. Could you trust the other teams? And as we've seen with the Marlins, can you trust them not to bring the virus into the country? So, yeah, I don't have a problem. As much as we would have loved to have had the Blue Jays play their home games here in Toronto, and it would have been terrific, I don't blame the feds one bit for saying no.
It's interesting, even as you watch the Jays, you see people, Vladdy wearing a mask as he plays, so taking it seriously. Oh, here are some pictures of that. There they are. As you say, you'd like to see more players doing what we're seeing the Jays do right there. Mike Wilner doing his great work from Toronto. Thank you so much for the time this morning, Mike. I always appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.